So welcome everybody to the press conference of ECOS, the Education, Communication and Outreach Stakeholders Group at the UNFCCC Bonn Climate Change Conference in May 2017. My name is Miroslav Polzer. I'm Secretary General of IAI, a UNFCCC accredited observer organization based in Austria, and I'm also ECOS Technical Support Unit, and I'm joined on this panel virtually by Mark McCaffrey, the ECOS focal point, and Danae Espinosa, the co-coordinator of Latin American Youth Climate Movement, CLIC, Evan Stembo from Envaros, member of ECOS from Zambia, Christina Stevens, author and filmmaker, IAI member and advisor for the Global Challenges Youth Music Contest, and Jan Lesestre from Climates. And let us start with a statement, a vision statement from our founder and focal point, Mark McCaffrey. And we are using here modern technology to bring everybody on board and into the process here. And let me now switch to the screen, duplicate, yes, here we are. And Mark, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Miro. So I am in Budapest, Hungary today, and very happy to be a part of this launch. We actually officially launched this organization at COP22 6 months ago or so. And I'm also grateful for Miro and Christina and others who helped with that event in Marrakesh. Since our initial launch, we have changed the name from Education, Communication, Outreach NGOs, or ECONGO as we called it at the time, to ECOS, which stands for Education, Communication, and Outreach Stakeholders. And I just wanted to take a brief couple of minutes to review the history of climate education and outreach. As many of you know, going back even to the 1950s, there were videos and educational films, workbooks, and so forth that discussed the impact of burning fossil fuels on the climate system and how in time there was a potential for raising sea level through melting of ice caps, changing of the environment, through this warming of the atmosphere, and general disruption from primarily the burning of fossil fuels. This dates back to the 1950s, and there's videos available online that you can find. But very little was done to really educate, engage, and inform the public through schools, through curriculum, through mainstream media over the next 30 years or so. Fortunately, the visionaries who sat down and wrote the original United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change recognized how imperative it is to have solid education in schools, public outreach, public engagement. And in Article 6 of the convention, they set down some principles which are very strong, very robust. And for those of you not familiar with them, I would encourage you to take a look at Article 6 of the original convention, because it really lays out the vision of what we need to do to provide public access to information, but also opportunities for the public to be a part of the solution, to be engaged in developing adequate responses to climate change. Since that original convention in 1992, there has been limited progress towards these goals of informing and engaging the public. I spent most of my years in the United States, and last year we published an article in the journal Science, which found that teachers are now teaching a little bit about climate change in schools, but many of them, about a third of the teachers we surveyed, are teaching essentially climate confusion. They're not teaching that the science is strong and that there's an urgency to address climate change. So unfortunately, in the United States, which is the third most populous country in the world and has the largest historic carbon footprint, there's still tremendous climate confusion. But there has been work done around the world that we would like to help highlight. And later today in Bonn, there will be the 5th Dialogue for Action on Climate Empowerment, which relates to Article 6 of the Convention. And so you'll be hearing more details about cutting-edge projects, initiatives around the world. And what we would like to do with ECOS is to help amplify the good work that's being done around the world, to help coordinate as best we can. Obviously, the Secretariat is doing what they are able to do with the limited funds and limited personnel to help keep things moving forward related to the Doha Work Program, which has tried to revitalize and re-energize that original goal, the goals set down from the convention back in 1992. But clearly, some of the big issues that we all face are related to scaling of our efforts. You know, there's some fantastic efforts, projects being done often at a very limited scale with limited funding. And the question is, how do we increase the funding? How can we, for instance, have national governments better support climate education? How can organizations such as the Green Climate Fund better support the integration of education, communication, and outreach into the projects that they help support through their grants? And how can all these things be tied together and coordinated better? So we hope that ECOS can play a role both within the UNFCCC system and the various constituency groups, especially YouNGO, the youth constituency, but also beyond that. How can we work with non-state actors? How can we help identify some of the best projects that are out there and serve as a clearinghouse and serve as essentially like a supporting backbone for the good work that's already being done, but is often disconnected from other projects. So I think with that, I would like to turn it back over to Miro, and thank you again for all of you for your interest in our efforts. And please visit us on our Facebook page. And I look forward to hearing more from all of you in the future.
Thank you very much, Mark, for your thematic introduction, for your vision, and for your leadership in setting up this stakeholder group. So I would like to add some more information regarding the logic and the rationale behind our stakeholders group. So in Paris in 2015, there has been the adoption of the Paris Agreement. Global community really put together an ambitious plan, and the paradigm shift that is included in this Paris Agreement is that everybody has a role to play in climate action. It's not something that we demand from governments to fix, but really it's all about multi-stakeholder action, and everybody needs to be on board. And here the text elements from the agreement and the decision about the Paris Agreement. The Conference of the Parties welcomes the efforts of non-party stakeholders to scale up their climate actions and encourages the registration of those actions in the non-state actor zone for climate action platform. It encourages parties to work closely with non-party stakeholders to catalyze efforts to strengthen mitigation and adaptation action. And the Article 12 especially focuses on climate change education, public awareness, public participation, and public access to information. So this is the ambitious plan, but the reality is that on the ground, among the ordinary people, there's a lack of awareness of the urgency of the climate challenge, and there's also a lack of prioritization of climate action. There's been a My World survey organized by the United Nations, World We Want initiative, and the SDGs Action Campaign, and they have asked almost 10 million people around the world what are the most important topics for the future of the world and where should global community take action. And climate action ranges among almost all groups, all age groups, all gender, and so on the last position. So very few people prioritize climate action, and only here in countries where there's a very high human development index, meaning also high educational level, and so people are really putting climate change higher on their list of priorities. So the question is now what to do about it. How can really the education, communication, and outreach stakeholders community help to advance the Paris Agreement implementation? And our stakeholder group, our stakeholder community is one of the innovations and answers to this question. It's only one element, but it is important that here within the UNFCCC process there is now a group and a network that looks specifically at this topic, and our group, stakeholder group, has been recognized by the UNFCCC Secretariat in the run-up to the COP22 conference in Marrakesh last year in November, and Mark McCaffrey has been the one who has very often proposed this, and luckily the UNFCCC Secretariat has been wise enough to really open up this space and stating clearly that this group of stakeholders, of registered observer organizations meeting here, that this is not a constituency, but it is a group, and this gives a lot of new innovation potentials, and we are here we have our morning meetings every day from 9 till 10 o'clock in the conference room Wien to look and to find our functional niche in the UNFCCC process. And so the questions that are guiding this, our exploratory phase, are: how can ECOS add value to the UNFCCC process and Paris Agreement implementation by providing input and expertise to the UNFCCC negotiations, by networking the relevant stakeholders, the climate change education, communication, and outreach stakeholder experts within and beyond the UNFCCC process, and even going beyond only those climate change education and communication outreach experts, but networking also with those education experts who work on promoting the Agenda 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals. How can we spearhead the formation of a global social network in this field? How can we map expertise and knowledge resources and facilitate access to them beyond the language barriers, technology issues, and resource constraints? And how can we also guide and inform a data partnership with the UNFCCC information system for non-state actors' climate action? How can we strengthen the knowledge base of the coalitions and alliances for climate action set up in the context of Marrakesh Partnership for Climate Action? And how can we inspire and also implement resource mobilization activities synergetic with resource mobilization of different partners, different constituencies and action groups here? And how can there be ECOS spearheading the promotion of open educational resources for climate change and Agenda 2030 education? And how can we also contribute some ideas and also activities to the promotion of sustainable lifestyles and offsetting of individual carbon footprints? So these are somehow the main questions around which we have our discussions in the group, and we hope that towards COP23 we will really have formulated our terms of reference and all our structures. And with me here on the panel are the panelists that I've introduced already. Did I introduce you? No, I didn't. Now I will introduce you. It's Danae Espinosa. I did, yeah? Yeah, you did. Okay. Yeah, you did. So, and Danae has a particular background coming from Mexico and from the youth climate movement, and there are specific issues that are in the field of education, communication, and outreach, and where perhaps our group our community, ECOS, could add value. Please be so kind to share with you.
Thank you. Something important to mention in this initiative is the access to, for the young people, access to their own language, native language. In our case, for Latin American youth and Caribbean youth, it's quite important to get access to this information, workshops, tools, etc., in a Spanish language and even Portuguese, because most of the time we don't have access to the papers in another language, by the way. So many of us, we are engaged with the climate change negotiations, not just in the Jungo constituency, because we have another interventions in a high level, etc. So it's important to know what is happening in the negotiations in our language. So the communication for us it's very important, and I think a French language is important too, because we know that in COP21 the guys, by the way, from Climates were pushing the language issue to engage more young people to the COI that they were preparing that year. And for us, about the cost to engage young people to this communication, outreach and education, etc., it's very important for us to get free access. And we can use, by the way, social media services like Facebook, Twitter, or even YouTube, because they are free and we are more connected with the world through these tools, informatic tools. So it will be great for our region to do it. So that's it.
Yeah, thank you. And,
sorry.
We have spoken also with Anna that there should be regional groupings in this ECOS community, and that for Latin America and Spanish.
Yeah, and I think it will be easy if we start to work per region, because the language per region, it's quite easy to work. So we can be working more with that. Yeah, the region issue is very important.
Very good to have you here. And as we spoke about regions, there is a region particularly in the need for capacity building and access to education, communication, and outreach, and that's Africa. And I'm delighted to have Evan Stembo, the Chief Executive Officer at Envaros, with us, and one of the founding members also of ECOS, with us since COP22. Evans, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Like you have introduced me, I'm delighted to be part of this press conference. The story from the African perspective. Envaros is, an organization which is promoting community resilience through capacity building, innovative research in Zambia, and we have been doing a lot of awareness-raising activities in colleges, with students, and also with communities. But bringing the story to the UNFCCC, since 2012, when we saw the launch of the Doha Work Program, I think I can admit to say that, yes, there was an alliance which was launched for climate change awareness and capacity building, but very little has been done in terms of, realizing the need for communities to be sensitized, more especially in Africa, on how best they can adapt to these climate impacts. And also, maybe one of the reasons that has contributed to that is that at that time, the Article 6 national focal points, now called the ASE national focal points, most countries in Africa do not have those focal points. Even like if I talk about maybe those, they are actually quite inactive. And I can attest to this. Even if you ask there in Bonn right now, you ask how many African national focal points for Article 6 or Action for Climate Empowerment, there are very few that have come to attend that very important meeting. That shows the gap which really exists. Also, there's lack of coordination in terms of climate information, that is nationally as well as regionally. And this is all applies from the African perspective. And there is no platform, actually, which should be there to provide, for learning experiences where different countries can share what they are doing, how they are reaching out to communities. Such kind of platform is not there. And it's also fueled by the fact that there's lack of funding, both from national governments as well as the UNFCCC funding bodies like the Green Climate Fund. There are no we have not had possibilities of accessing such funding when we started this climate awareness raising programs. So we do this all because of our passion, really with no financial support from big organizations. So it's a call and a plea for us as Envaros, who are part of ECONGO, that ECONGO, as it comes in now, it can be used as a platform to enhance on these aspects by dialoguing with UNFCCC to making sure that at least very local level are sensitized on how they can adapt. Moreover, it's communities at local level who are being impacted negatively by impacts of climate change. So, good community capacities, and it's through education, communication, and outreach that we can be able to do that. Thank you very much once more for giving me a platform, connecting with you from Belgium, Ghent. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Evans, and we are delighted to have you with us, bringing in the African perspective. And it's, as we've discussed before, our community will really have to demonstrate with African-focused education, communication, and outreach stakeholders that we can deliver added value. Only when this really will take place, then we have succeeded. And you have mentioned ECONGO, perhaps a clarification also. Our group has been formed at COP22 as ECONGO, Education, Communication, and Outreach, non-governmental organizations, but we have changed our name to ECOS, Education, Communication, and Outreach Stakeholders, now in spring this year, because it's in line with the paradigm shift of the Paris Agreement, speaking about stakeholders, multiple stakeholders, and not only NGOs, and also in order to avoid any confusion, whether we might be an organization from Congo or whatever. And with this, I give the floor to Christina Stevens to talk about innovative ways of reaching the people with this climate change topic and sustainable development. Please.
Thank you, Miro. Yes, well, you saw from that amazing graph that Miro showed us that climate change is on the bottom of everyone's list. So we're really going to have to be truly innovative to get through the mire of, and just the awareness. In fact, you know, I don't know if you can see this, but this is the SDGs, this is the app, the SDGs app, but it really doesn't convince you of anything. It merely gives you information of what local governments need to know, not what people need to know, and what we who are going to implement all of these, the Sustainable Development Goals are going to need to know, because they're all connected. Even though climate is on the bottom, it is connected to everything, because if our climate is out, then we may as well forget about everything else. And then we also have our inner climate, and really true lasting change begins in the heart. That's the only way we're going to start moving, and so we have to be truly innovative to dig into and get into through people's heads and into their hearts. However, there is an idea and something that has been going on since Rio +20 was the Global Youth Music Contest. Because, you know, we know that youths are not our leaders of tomorrow. They are our partners of today. They have the energy, they have the expertise, they've got the passion, they've got the inspiration, and they're able to kind of make climate change sexy, which, you know, many of us really can't do that anymore. And what we need to know, what we need to do is empower them and give them, turn their potential into action. So the concept of the Global Youth Music Contest is that we're going to reach out around the world and ask for youth to write songs and create songs, music videos, that then will be posted online and everyone will be able to vote for them online. And then when we get to November and we get here, there will be a jury voting, and then there'll be a celebrity voting. And this will go all the way up to early November, when we will be having an event over here at the studio. We'll be recording it, we'll be live streaming it, we'll be podcasting it. But part of this activity is to get these Sustainable Development Goals into real people language and languages, translated into every language, and songs will come in every language as well, because it's happened before. We did it before, and this year we have the Chinese contingent that are now partnering with us, and that is going to be kind of massive. So this is a very exciting thing that is about to be launched in June here in Bonn, this coming June, and this is one of those unique moments where young people are going to tell the world what they feel in their heart about the planet, and how they think, what they see through their eyes, and how we can change it. So go on to tell all your friends about it. So
thank you very much, Christina. And really, we need a lot of innovation. We need also informal modes of learning, and we need to partner with youth, and therefore especially happy to have Jan Lesestre today with us from Climates, who are really leaders in climate change capacity building in France, but all around the world.
Thank you. At first, let me briefly introduce Climates. So Climates is not a French, but an international youth-led think and do tank with members and activities undertaken in nearly 30 countries. Our main mission is to empower youth to become a change maker on climate change. More specifically, we have 3 kinds of activities related to advocacy. We also build bridges between the climate science, economics, finance, climatology, and the youth, because sometimes even when you are aware of what climate change is, it's very tough to understand what is at stake and what we can do as youth to make a difference. And finally, as you mentioned, we also undertake projects aiming at training youth and raise awareness on key climate change issues. For example, we have a project called Eat My City, whose objective is to make youth understand what will be the consequences of heat wave events in urban areas. We also have a project called Copy My City. During a Copy My City event, youth between 15 and 20 youth are invited to a serious game where they can play a group of country and negotiate according to the position of the country they play in real life, so that they can understand what is the COP about, what are the main changes, what we cannot reach an agreement as ambitious as we want. And but in this way, youth are aware of the issue and want to do something real, actual on the ground. So, as I said, we also have projects related to advocacy. For example, we have participated during the last 4 years to UNFCCC conferences such as the COPs and SB session. Like today, we are in a SB session. And we consider that with the adoption of the Paris Agreement, it has become more important than ever to create links between what happened on the ground and the formal discussion on international climate-related policies. This is what we call the Global Climate Action Agenda. And so far, some very important question has been launched on issues related to agriculture, to energy, to transportation, to other key sectors. But we don't see a lot of activities under the UNFCCC framework related to education, communication, and outreach. We like both a formal recognition of the importance of those areas to fight against climate change, and we like also strong coalition of actors so far. Because we We think that this vision, these ideas, is shared by the ECOS community, and that's why we are very glad to be part of this project.
Thank you very much, Jan. Wonderful to have you with us. And Joe Robertson, the Global Strategy Director at Citizens Climate Lobby and initiator and coordinator of a bunch of interesting education, communication, and outreach activities. Please, the floor is yours.
Sure. So I want to, first of all, thank everybody for the contributions you're making here and also every day, and say, to build on some of what we've heard, you know, when the Sustainable Development Goals were passed, they put in place a new standard for multi-level, multilateral partnerships to make policy. And that builds on Article 6 of the '92 Climate Treaty, which calls for public participation in the design and implementation of policy making, of climate policy. And then, of course, the Paris Agreement integrated stakeholder participation. And so in my work, you know, what we've learned working with citizens, putting citizens into relationship with their lawmakers, is that, you know, that multi-level, multilateral collaboration works better when more people are involved. Sometimes people think if you keep too many people out of the room, if you keep more people out of the room, you have a more efficient process. They think it's a shortcut to action, but actually you get a lot of inefficiency that way, because instead of asking people what they know and what they need, you end up guessing. And that leads to mistakes, and that leads to inefficiency. So because the smartest, fastest way for us to get to the integration of climate policy into all different areas of government budgets and international trade and economics is to have everybody be involved and to learn from and harness local knowledge, actions that are already working where people live and breathe. We put together the Citizens Climate Engagement Network to create a methodology and a coalition of support for that kind of organizing, so people can come into local meetings with any level of expertise or non-expertise and work together in teams. What ends up happening in those kind of open conversations is they learn from each other, they learn what their interests are, and then they begin developing a policy focus, and they can commit to action after that. Not everyone will be involved, but those who do become local leaders. And so we then realize that we need a way for people to share information about policy. And access to good platform is essentially taking advantage of a technology called Read and Note that lets people annotate documents. You can convene meetings inside of documents. So that means we can take the documents being negotiated here, put them out into the world, and bring in as many voices as may be constructive for getting a better outcome. By visualizing that wider landscape of knowledge and action, we actually make everybody's ambition stronger. Because it's not possible to say our ambition is here when out in the society it's already here. Or that our capability is here when actually this has already been done. We just didn't know about it. And national governments are sometimes in that position. So we're working to put all those things together in a way where the ECOS group and the ECOS community can be real levers of support for better policy outcomes.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing your experience and your good practice cases in this field, and looking forward to work with you on this. Are there any questions? On the panel, any concluding remarks?
Well, actually, I want to share something, because I was watching on the news last night, or maybe it was yesterday afternoon, I was watching CNN, and they were seeing the streets of Venezuela and everything that was going on there. You know, I mean, the parents have been marching and everything. And this is aligned to the music contest, because in the middle of explosions and everything happening, there was a young lady, she had a hard hat on, and she was playing the violin. And it so caught me when I saw that, and I thought, my goodness, maybe a couple of people, maybe that stopped a couple of people. I mean, she was very courageous, because there were explosions everywhere, people pulling other people, and here she is playing away. It was very moving. So I just wanted to share a little story.
Yeah, thank you. And somehow it is also symbolizing the power of the individual.
The power.
And also
Yes.
the power of a small group of change makers. And with this ECOS community, we hope to make connection between these change makers on the ground, these change makers in the UNFCCC process, and especially the young people of all languages and all regions, so that we are really a global community and that.
And it takes courage.
Yeah.
It takes courage.
Yeah.
Today.
It does, but it's also a matter of survival, and
Yes.
So
Yep.
we will work on this, and you will hear again from us for sure at COP23, but also before. Please join us on the Facebook group, ECOS, and we have also a YouTube channel where we are broadcasting our meetings, and there are also videos on demand and other resources. Everybody is welcome, and the best way to get connected is through the Facebook ECOS homepage. Please join us, and there we can then follow up on the communication. So,
Miro, could I say one last thing?
yes, please.
Yes, I really very much appreciate everybody's comments, and we have often talked about ECOS as being a network of networks, because all of you are part of organizations that are also networking with other groups and individuals. But I think that's part of the power that ECOS would very much like to tap. But also between the individual and the 10 billion people or so that are anticipated on the planet by 2050, there's only 10 orders of magnitude. And I bring that up because, in a way, we often think that the individual activities are just a small little drop in the bucket. But every little drop adds up. Every drop does make a difference. And it's through the combination and the confluence of those drops in the bucket that we can make a difference. So, again, thank you all very much for being a part of this, and we'll see you on our Facebook page, and hopefully at some point our paths will cross again. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your concluding remarks, Mark. Have a good day altogether.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Evans.
Bye.